Hello, friends. This is Anthony from Force Ghost Conversations. Are you looking to get into the podcast game yourself? Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, let me tell you, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has some tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Then, when hosting on Anchor, you can even distribute your podcast on listening platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more places. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And get this, everyone, best of all, Anchor is totally free. Just download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm going to take a deep dive look into the Disney Gallery episode on the Book of Boba Fett. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. And we look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. And also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for Force Ghost Conversations. Before we get into the discussion about that recent Disney Gallery episode on the Book of Boba Fett, I am going to run through some of the latest news and all the happenings in the Star Wars galaxy in our appropriately dubbed segment, Cloud City Gossip. Now, first, for those of you who are not attending Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim, which is taking place just maybe a week and a half away at this point. We're May 26th. That's coming up very soon. So if you're going to stay home for the convention, you can still keep up as the convention will be live streamed on YouTube for each day of the convention. You can check out all the main panels, announcements, and catch up with cool interviews with the many guests that are there from the Star Wars Celebration live show. So check out the Star Wars YouTube page and stay tuned for all of the new updates. Also, we got confirmation this week that the Ahsoka series has started production. We do not have many, in fact, any details yet, but I would imagine that the show is probably aiming for a 2023 release date. And as soon as we have more news, rest assured, we will share those updates here on Force Ghost Conversations. Now, in addition, a wonderful cover for the upcoming new book, The Princess and the Scoundrel, was unveiled. This cover features a romantic embrace of Han Solo and Leia Organa with a small cameo by the Halcyon Star Cruiser in the background. The Halcyon Star Cruiser is aka the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel that you can now stay at Disney World. So be sure to check out the cover on StarWars.com now, and the book is written by Beth Revis and will be released on August 16th. So make sure you're ready for that when it comes out later this summer. And on the other side of this break, we will take a deep dive look at the Disney Gallery episode for the Book of Boba Fett. Stay tuned. Okay, friends, we are back, and let's get into our deep dive look at the Disney Gallery episode for the Book of Boba Fett. Now, I will admit, I'm a little disappointed with the Star Wars fandom, I guess, if you want to say it larger, but I feel like this is an episode that is largely under-discussed at this point, or largely forgotten. Frankly, I mean, it makes sense. It was it was released among the May 4th celebration stuff, and all the new updates and the announcements of toys and figures going on sale, the Kenobi trailer, the new poster, all the hype for that. So honestly, I think it's unfortunate that I think that this episode has been a little under the radar, so to speak, or a little forgotten amongst the Star Wars community at this point. So I really wanted to do a great deep dive on this hour long documentary behind the scenes look at the Book of Boba Fett, so to speak, and just highlight some of the cool and really awesome things that have were put into making the show be such a success that it was on Disney Plus. Now, if you've been following us along on Force Ghost Conversations, you know I personally loved everything about the Book of Boba Fett, and this documentary really was a continuation of highlighting those great themes that we discuss week to week here. Um, and just making sure that highlighting really some of those cool like details of like what is practical, what is not, what is the technology that needs to be developed for something like that, what are the actors thinking of when they're putting these scenes together, what is their approaches. And that's something that this Disney Gallery episode really does well. Personally, I'm a big fan of what this like whole Disney Gallery thing overall is. They did it the the Mandalorian, both season 1 and 2. Unfortunately, season 2 is only 2 episodes for its documentary series, I guess. And the season 1, which I watch those episodes pretty frequently, is like a what is it, like an 8-part series or something like that, maybe 8. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. But they're each like half-hour installments where they talk about one various aspect of the Mandalorian. So whether it be the technology to put together, the directors behind the directors behind the camera, the actors in front of the camera, what are the connections to the greater Star Wars lore and galaxy. It's great. I love these behind the scenes look. Star Wars is one of those franchises that I want every aspect of the curtain to be unveiled for me. It doesn't ruin the magic for me whatsoever. So I always appreciate all the details that I can possibly get when it comes to something in the galaxy far, far away. So this is right up my alley personally. I hope it's right up the alley for you as well at home. So with that, I liked how the episode really started out with Favreau and Filoni just kind of talking about their approach to this series and just what they think it means for the Star Wars galaxy overall. I liked how Favreau was saying how they want to be respectful to all of Star Wars, do not just the movies, but also the expanded lore and the former EU and now the new extended canon. It just makes sense, and I really appreciate how Filoni of all people, especially coming in there with his work on Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Rebels, you name it. He is definitely his presence is known in the Star Wars universe, and for him to say something like what quote unquote here, making it feel like one connected galaxy is yes, I agree. We talked a lot here on Forest Coast Conversations when the Book of Boba Fett was coming out that the title shouldn't limit creativity, and that's basically how they approached that show. Was at the core of it all, and predominantly this is a Boba Fett show, is continuing on his story from the Mandalorian season 2 when he was reintroduced back into Star Wars essentially, and just really picking up those pieces to see where he's going. But it also doesn't mean you can't highlight some of the characters that were integral into the Mandalorian season 1, season 2. Looking at you, Pelimoto. And also, there's those Mandalorian episodes where he's predominantly the main focus of it all, but there's also Grogu, there is Luke Skywalker, there is Ahsoka Tano. Um, just why not have these characters connect? And their stories are going to cross paths even more in the future, right? Who knows? Mandalorian season 3 may have a entire Boba Fett centered episode or something like that, or may need to call upon Boba, right, or Luke Skywalker or Ahsoka, right? It's an interconnected universe, and these characters are, and if it fits right for the story and what they want to get at, then so be it. I completely agree with what they were pointing out there when it comes to that. So honestly, I really probably the biggest takeaway I would say from this series, from this episode overall, is just amazing how much of the show is practical. There's that Sarlacc intestines that they created from scratch. All of the creatures are just practical. So you need like the Ithorian mare, sorry, the bantha, that head of the Rancor is all practical. So well done. Kudos to the creature team, the props team. and that was just amazing. Amazing for what this show needed, and just really makes it feel so lived in. That just was really, really, really cool. Really, really cool. Um, so moving on, then I just really appreciated how Kathy Kennedy was brought back into this kind of this documentary behind the scenes look. And I really appreciated how she was very candid about this conversation she had with George when she first took over at Lucasfilm. And George basically said to her, if you ever do like a Boba Fett continuation or story, you should cast Tamura. And I 100% agree. George basically gave her one of the greatest gifts ever in casting him at the age that he did, basically for episode 2, where even with 20 years later, we could still have him playing Boba again. Or I should say, casting him as Django, and then creating that story beat that he is a clone of Boba, is a clone of Django. And all the extra time that we get with Tamura Morrison is such a gift in this documentary. Like, this man has so much energy, so much passion, and you can tell that he puts every bit of that energy into his acting, and that's really inspiring for me personally, and just to see how much he loves being a part of the Star Wars galaxy, and what a real gift it is for us fans to see him portray this iconic character on the screen. I liked his approach that he was saying about how he takes like songs from his ancestors and his Maori roots and culture into um, kind of put him in the headspace that he needs to be for certain acting instances for the series overall. Um, that was really great. That was really great. Um, then honestly, we get to see a lot more of Robert Rodriguez in this series. And I love that fact that he just appreciates playing music on set. Seeing him play with the guitar, just really cool. He has that kind of rock star vibe overall. If you ever get to watch this episode, like, he's got the hat on, he's wearing like these leather jackets. He's totally rocking a rocking vibe there, if you follow me. And just love that he likes to play music on set. It's a great note that he said about the creativity that inspires and how he's able to connect with people that he's creating with on a different level. That's really neat. And just to see him play beside Tamura in the Boba Fett outfit is just also cool in its own right too. And he plays later on with Grogu at the end of the episode, and that's a fun one too. I really like that about a lot. Um, so I honestly, I think that his collaboration overall with John and Dave was really fresh and insightful. I like how they brought him into the fold and they talked about that entire process overall, and how they really appreciated his intake on the character for The Mandalorian season 2, especially that major episode that he directed. And just great to see how they brought that up. And Dave Filoni went right to the point here in this kind of opening instance where they're really getting into the meat of the episode. And they talk about, obviously, like, this main thing that they needed to address in the series, The Book of Boba Fett, was the transformation that Boba needed to undertake, especially coming out of that Sarlacc pit, right? That, as we talked about here on Force Ghost Conversations, that was like a rebirth for Boba. It was like he was born again. He had that former bounty hunter that was thrown to the wolves, basically, and forgotten, just another cannon fodder person that is easily moved on past, another bounty hunter. There will always be another one. Um, it's just like how they brought that same approach to this series, and they wanted to take it from the character perspective of what does that do for somebody. Um, and he has to, and Dave was right, he has to make this new choice about who he wants to be with this new outlook on his life. And we see where it goes in the course of the episode, of the season of the Book of Boba Fett, and what that does to him overall. Now, there's this really fascinating John Favreau quote. I'm sorry I didn't have it pulled up, but I just think that entire thing, he just goes on this like maybe minute long uh, thing uh, about how we could have done the same character who just is a ruthless bounty hunter and all that stuff essentially, but he's like saying, well, we got to give him like all these challenges to face, and that's not what Star Wars is about. Star Wars is about putting these characters in these ideological and contextual situations where they have to grow as people and change and decide if they want to be a part of the hero's journey or not, right? And that's what really is the thesis of the show and why it exists. And it was just really gratifying here that we were kind of picking up on that along the way here at Force Ghost Conversations, and it seemed like for you folks back at home too, during our interactions on social media over the course of the Book of Boba Fett, we're also picking up on that. So it's just really great to hear that we were on the same wavelengths. It's not necessarily a thing that has to be done, where we value different opinions here, especially Force Ghost Conversations. That's the idea of a conversation, is you're allowed to have different opinions here and stuff like that. So if it wasn't your jam, then that's entirely up to you too, or you think the character should be handled in a different manner, that's okay. But I'm glad that, there's something to be said about, we also saw what they were putting down here, and if you liked it, you liked it, and if not, you're not. It's okay. So, but anyways, I just wanted to say how whatever the full quote is that Jon Favreau said there, put that on the poster. That's just great. That's just great. John says later on, what are these? He says a great word like challenges of conscience, and what do you stand for in this world? Is there an examination of what the purpose is to wielding such power? And in regards to Boba Fett, right? He now has the throne. He's this daimyo of Mos Espa and Tatooine, Mos Eisley, right? He's overlooking this great crime area, and what does it mean to wield power? How do you create a tribe, a family out of that? How do you take the lessons you've learned in your life and move on beyond that, right? That's exactly what the Book of Boba Fett is all about at its core, and it's just, I think they do a great job at answering that question. Great seeing Fennec Shan back. Great behind the scenes looks at Ming-Na Wen back in the Star Wars fold again. I love how she just geeked out so much about being in a Star War, and may we all have that joy in our daily lives as we're moving about. The sand creature was really, really cool. Honestly, give all the major props to Robert Rodriguez, who still had that tinfoil sculpture of the sand creature that he put together, because he wanted to showcase how he had, basically 6 limbs, 4 arms, 4 legs, to whatever you want to splice it up there, 4 and 2, one way or the other. And just amazing how someone is able to put something together like that, just thinking creatively in your head and just thinking, well, it's easier to do a visualization of it and just do it. And he just kept it, right? Like, just a piece of like basically tinfoil put together, and he kept it. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. That could be in a museum or a Lucasfilm archive someday. That could be put on display at some point. Maybe pretty cool. But he also did that like short video sequence, which it's nothing short of amazing. I don't even know how someone gets to create something like that. What are the things that needs to be done in order to make that happen? I don't know. I just loved how he just noted how like each arms and legs served a purpose in a fight. So, the character is a brilliant Star Wars creation. Really cool overall. Another really interesting connection that this Book of Boba Fett has overall is that Dean Cundey is the director of photography on the show, and he was quoted a little bit in the Book of Boba Fett gallery documentary for his work on the series, and how he was kind of influenced by things such as like Lawrence Arabia and other influencing Star Wars films to kind of create the look and feel of this series. But for those of you at home that may not know, Dean Cundey was also the director of photography on Halloween and some of those early films in the Halloween franchise. So personally, I geeked out a lot because I love Halloween. Halloween's one of my favorite film franchises overall. That's really neat to see him in the Star Wars fold. And honestly, now that I think about it more, I really did appreciate the overall look and feel of the Book of Boba Fett, and that's largely due to his the photography that he had set up there. And we got to see a little bit more behind the scenes for the tribe, and especially for that group movement sequence. It was really cool to see that behind the scenes footage again, and I just love seeing that moment once more. I mean, that was really emotional, passionate, and it was great to see Tamura again bring more of his Maori heritage into the series once again. Some more Garza Whip action in this documentary. The great Jennifer Beals um, sharing some more insights in her backstory about the character overall. I really like the connection for Garza Whip's establishment to Rick's place in Casablanca. And again, I really appreciate when I get to hear and see the connections for Star Wars to its larger overall influences in the galaxy. Great stuff. Carrie Jones is also phenomenal. Love all the cool details that they shared about Chrysanthemum, and it's particularly about the face and the structure of the whatever you want to call it, the mold for the face. How it was really emulated, like the way it worked was like if he moved his mouth, like the mouth would move on the Wookiee's face too. So I'm amazed at how this works. I have no idea how it really does overall, but there's just an amazing level of depth and dimension that I hope gets used for other characters and creatures moving forward, and we'll especially get to see a little bit of that with Cad Bane later on. But I think with Cad, it's not necessarily that like the animatronic, like whatever animatronic feature made his face do that. I think that was just because the mask was so tight on the actor's face that it automatically made the same movements that he would underneath when he was trying to make facial movements and expressions, what have you. That was just great. Good to see Carrie Jones in Star Wars, and he'll be at Celebration later in a few weeks there. So if you're going to Star Wars Celebration, you may want to get an autograph or to get your picture taken with him. I will say honestly that wonderful magician's trick for the mod work for Fennec Shan, it just absolutely blew my mind. That may be my favorite practical effect of the entire series. And that was just, I will never look at the scene the same again. I'll just know that she's like somehow hidden in a box underneath her body while her head is just on the table basically with her prosthetic body getting modded. And I know the mods are one of those like you either love them or you don't kind of things from the Book of Boba Fett. I personally really appreciated their entry into the Star Wars canon, but I liked how the mods are kind of brought up as the like the antithesis of what the Mandalorian represents, especially at the start of the Mandalorian season 1, where he's like, I don't want anything to do with droids. That's the last thing I want in my existence. And now you see how, like, as John and Dave talk about, this is like a continuation of like a generational continuation where the next generations is like, I want to be connected to the technology. I want to be literally combined with it. I want to like change my body to become more technologically advanced. And like that's pretty cool to me. That's pretty cool. So again, another amazing practical effect of the series is that I just love how they decided to make an entire Rancor head for Boba to ride. They just like Doug Chang especially was like, well, we could go big or go home. Basically, that's not exactly what he said, but no, in a kind of metaphorical sense, that's what they were talking about. They were saying we're gonna either make it's either gonna be a CG guy or we're gonna at least do some mix of practical effects, and they've actually literally made an entire full head that Tamora Morrison can ride, and he did, and he's got to see some of those behind the scenes reels of that, and that was amazing. That was amazing. And I agreed. We talked about this at the beginning of this podcast episode, but when Don and yeah, that's what we should call John and Dave. We just combine together and call them Don. But I do agree with John and Dave, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni in regards to continuing the Mandalorian story. It makes sense to do so here in the Book of Boba Fett. It doesn't detract away from Boba's story at all. And sometimes it adds to the galaxy, right? If the Mandalorian just showed up and he said things that was like, oh, I went to go see Grogu, or he didn't say anything at all, it would just be confusing later on in The Mandalorian Season 3. It's a great springboard to move forward his story while seeing his connection to Boba and noting how they have affected each other since The Mandalorian Season 2. The same deal happened with The Mandalorian Season 2. I think folks seem to forget that, where Boba Fett kind of stole the scene of some episodes there. And it was the same deal. It reintroduced the character in that saga. And then, likewise, The Mandalorian can exist in the Book of Boba Fett. Absolutely. And it, honestly, in continuing that Mandalorian thought there, it warmed my heart seeing Doug Chang talk so passionately about the N1 Starfighter again, a ship that has profoundly affected my life, seeing the Phantom Menace so many times that I have. Love that ship. It was amazing, and it got me emotional in the Book of Boba Fett seeing that again too. But also, come on now, as a prequel fan, as a prequelist, as someone that loves the Phantom Menace unapologetically, seeing the volume with the aspects of the pod race track when he's flying in that N1 Starfighter and Beggar's Canyon as well was so wild. I always also love seeing Mark Hamill. Anytime we can get Mark Hamill back into the Star Wars galaxy, I'm here for it. It's fantastic that they were able to bring his input and do some takes with those Luke scenes, particularly when he's interacting with Grogu. Dave Filoni brought this great lineage ideology discussion here into play in the documentary, where he's talking about like how Qui-Gon is a kind of like almost a shared parent in a way if you talk about their ideology lineage for Luke and Ahsoka. Whereas obviously Qui-Gon taught Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan then taught Luke, but also Qui-Gon taught Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan taught Anakin, Anakin taught Ahsoka. So they're kind of like related if you think about it in an ideological sense. Like their teachers were the same if you take it back to a certain point. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool to me. I also loved how it was kind of, loved it. It was hysterical how Rosario Dawson, the actress for Ahsoka Tano, thought that she was meeting up with Master Plo Koon again, who, another behind-the-scenes tidbit here that is not necessarily addressed in the documentary is that Dave Filoni's favorite Jedi is Plo Koon, but he is tragically struck down in the events of Order 66, as far as we know. At this point, it's on screen, so I imagine that's the case. But her reaction to seeing Mark Hamill on the set was literally how all of us should and would react to that, I would imagine. I would geek out entirely, but her face of pure joy and elation, love seeing it. Love seeing it when people are just so thrilled to be a part of this grand Star Wars galaxy and the universe of it all. I would want to be a part of it. Come on, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to be amidst the Star Wars galaxy and to portray some of these iconic characters? It's really cool. So I have no idea still how the deepfake technology works or whatever they're doing there to make Luke Skywalker look incredible. But the ILM team really stepped up their work, even from The Mandalorian Season 2. Now, as someone who also makes a ton of mistakes at the office, right, and personally, we learn from them. That's how we grow as people. It's okay to make mistakes. But there's something that's really humble about how the people that talked about the Luke process in the Disney Gallery series, they're so humble about how they learned so much from The Mandalorian Season 2 and brought in others to try and improve their technology. And frankly, they've perfected it, if you ask me. I'm sure they're going to keep tinkering with it and trying to improve it. But if you ask me, I think they've cracked the code on deepfake or whatever, face swap recognition, whatever they're trying to do over there. They've got my buy-in. As a fan, I even liked what they did in Mandalorian Season 2. I bought it. I understand technology is always advancing faster than we can really creatively put things together sometimes, or sometimes it's the adverse. Your creativity outpaces your technology. I think they've really cracked the code on how to make this possible. And I'm excited to see what it does for future storytelling, but that might be a topic for a different day. So frankly, for me too, let me just say that the Cad Bane face work is amazing. We've already talked about this a little bit, but they went into more detail in the towards the end of the gallery episode. The hat being so cool again was just the icing on the cake. The teeth are still nightmare inducing. Whoever put together the prosthetic for the mask, basically, great job. And again, we talked about the mouth again, but how it was so close to the face, um, gave it so much more of a realistic feeling. And great work. Whoever was in the suit actually did a great job portraying what I understand to be Cad Bane, and I felt like it was a character, that I had grown up watching for years on the Clone Wars. Wonderful. So Favreau also then, again, kind of in closing, we're getting to the end of the gallery episode here, where they kind of start about talking about the larger picture and about the hero's journey. And Favreau again talks about kind of the overall creative arc for the series, and it's about becoming larger than something in yourself. And this is a direct quote from him. It's about becoming something larger than yourself, putting your own individual needs aside and making them subservient to something bigger than yourself. Again, Book of Boba Fett to a T. They get to talk about creating a tribe, a community of his own after his experience with the Tuskens. And Tamura Morrison even confirms that too. It's about seeking family. It's a part of his emotional journey, something that maybe always wanted but never had entirely, and now he gets to have that. Again, this documentary was incredible. I loved the Book of Boba Fett, and to see these characters again, it's just really heartwarming. The creative crew behind this series did a phenomenal job, in my opinion. There, all the criticism that they've taken, you're not gonna, it's not gonna come from me here at Force Cook Conversations. I love what they were doing. I'm a big fan of that creative team and their work, and I'm excited to see what they're gonna do again for the future, for whatever. If there's a Book of Boba Fett season 2, chapter 2, maybe, Mandalorian season 3, Ahsoka, wherever the galaxy holds from them. John, Dave, hopefully Robert Rodriguez gets to continue to play in the Star Wars galaxy a bit more. I don't think Boba's story is entirely done, but for this emotional arc of it all, I'm here for it. And I love getting these behind the scenes tidbits on how they put the series together. The practicality of what all the effects and stuff like that did, that blew my mind. I would have never anticipated that it was so practical over the course of the entire series. And that's just really an added, kudos to all the crew and the props teams and the makeup artists and the VFX teams. They all did fantastic. And the directors and actors as well deserve a lot of credit for putting this series together. And with that, we've taken a deep dive into the Disney Gallery episode for the Book of Boba Fett. I hope you enjoyed the gallery documentary as well. I'm looking forward to future iterations of that, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is coming out just around the corner, so maybe we'll get a documentary about that series as well. But in the meantime, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode of Forest Coast Conversations. I thank you all for listening. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We'd love to connect with you and hear your thoughts about the Book of Boba Fett, about the gallery episode. What are your favorite behind-the-scenes details about this series, The Mandalorian, Star Wars overall? Love to hear about it. Let's continue the conversation. But until then, may the Force be with you.